Hey guys, welcome back to another Vanguard video. It's Deeplands Thursday, so today we're talking about the new ride line from DZ-BT12 Chasm of Lost Souls. But first off, we got a big reprint news. Everyone thought it was going to be Alvina, but it's actually Fire Regalis. So really nice to see this because, man, if you look at the price of Fire Regalis right now, it is pretty bad. So thank goodness, really great reprint in DZ set 12, as well as, of course, us getting the Youthquake promos as box toppers. The first starter is Meldico, which is auto when rode upon. If you went second, draw a card, and it's used by Ryu from the Skyride manga. The next card to talk about is Deeplands Grazcain, which has the auto when rode upon by Deeplands Gilgan. This is the grade 2. You search your deck or drop for up to 1 Collab Deeplands, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle the deck. Now, Collab Deeplands is quite a wordy normal order, but we'll break it down. Anyways, it can be played from drop, so if you mill it off Shadow Cloak or any other, on place, mill selectively from top 5 effects, such as through a new card we'll look at, or, through Philander, you can play it from drop for a turn, but it is a grade 3 order, so you do have to wait until grade 3 to play it. Anyways, you play it with the cost of Soul Blast 1 and retire 1 of your Rearguards, so it sounds a little bit hefty, but there's a lot of cards that call back from drop through the Deeplands archetype, as well as, of course, Maple and Usurp, which we'll talk about later. If you have a Vanguard with Reguregnus in its card name, so again, when you're on turn 3, you choose up to 2 cards with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard from drop and call them to Rearguard Circle. This is already really strong in itself. You can easily set up Hostage, which I'll talk about when we get to the Vanguard. But of course, most of the time you are going to be calling Deeplands Rearguards because they're going to be buffed by the continuous in the order zone. Anyways, and your Vanguard gets plus 5k until end of turn, so you're getting 2 rears, plus 5k to Van, really good because a lot of your power from triggers will be passing later. But anyways, it's mostly just to make a better number for your Vanguard swing. Perform one of the following based on the number of cards with the same name as this card in your order zone. If you have 0 cards in your order zone, so basically if it's your first time playing it, you put it into the order zone and it'll stay there for the continuous order zone effect. If you have 1 or more, you bind this card, you choose one of your Call of Deeplands from your order zone, and the power increase for a turn gets plus 5 until end of turn. It's basically just worded this way, so you get like double plus 5, so basically plus 10 to your Deepland Rears and Vanguard, anything that was basically placed. And pretty much it's just so you can't steamroll Crest, pretty much. That's just why it's worded that way. So 0 cards goes into the order zone if you never played it before. If you've already played it, you just give that plus 5 to the continuous in the order zone. If your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, so this isn't doing much besides, getting you the free plus and plus 5k to Vanguard going first. But it is really strong when you go second, so that's a pretty big thing to note. All of your units with Deeplands in their card names that were placed from drop this turn by the card ability or a card either with the same name as this card or with Reguregnus its card name get plus 5. So a lot of easy plus 5 to your board, which will make pretty nice numbers. A lot of the rears get a lot of easy plus 5, so you can easily make plus 30, like 33k, 28k columns. Really, really great numbers. Honestly, going second, I wouldn't say it's amazing for DC, but it's still pretty modern, at least for like going second, because once we get to the Vanguard, you are doing twin drive, and then going second, your turn is actually pretty strong. You get to pass trigger effects and do 3 drives, and basically this card is doing a lot for the deck. It is the best order. Being able to play it from drop also means you obviously are going to be pitching this early for your ride phase, so a lot to break down in this card. It is really wordy, but it is pretty amazing. You get to just basically sack off a rear, which is super easy because you also have a lot of call from drop effects, but usually you'll probably sack off Maple or Usurp, whatever is on your board you don't really care about getting rid of. Plus on your board, get this into the order zone, get free power, unless you went first because your opponent isn't grade 3 or greater. But either way, pretty amazing card, and Shadow Cloak, again, is a really great option for milling this. We also have Philander and a new rear that we're going to talk about later on. Next up is the grade 2. We have Deeplands Gilgan, so this is the ride line still. So auto when rode upon by grade 3 with Reguregnus in its card name. You check top 7, choose up to 2 cards from on them, discard them and shuffle your deck. So of course you want to discard your order. You want to discard any cards that you have drop effects, what that can call themselves back out. There's a Combine Rusher for this deck. There's Usurp. You have a lot of really great options to mill things. Of course, you could also be milling Fire Regalis and a bunch of other things because, of course, you're going to be playing the order every turn. So Fire Regalis is a really great option because it removes itself. It doesn't count as the play for order every turn. But yeah, really simple. Just check top 7, selective mill. And because it's choose up to 2, you don't have to mill if you see like 7 triggers, which is obviously very nice. And of course, it's no cost. All right, finally, the Vanguard itself. We have Deeplands Reguregnus. So act on Vanguard Circle once per turn. Cost Energy Boss 2, choose a card for drop, and call to Rearguard Circle. So something I did want to bring up is that Hostage is going to be very easy to perform in this deck. For those who don't know, Hostage basically takes a combination of these 2 cards right here on your screen, and they pretty much make it so you can move a PG from your Rearguard Circle to Guardian Circle and guard with it, essentially. So there's a lot of really easy call from drop effects, not even just looking at Reguregnus and, of course, the signature order to basically set up. The point of this is because Reguregnus has the cost to sack off rears for the Vanguard Circle skill that we're about to read. But it's just a big thing to note that this deck has a lot of flexibility where you can be playing it to mill out your deck rapidly and be aggressive, or you can play the deck in like a slower play style and go for like Hostage because it's so easy to call a PG from drop and essentially like hostage it off and really just play the slow game against your opponent and grind them out. So really big thing to note there. And because this is actually the only card, which is the Vanguard, that uses energy, none of the rears actually use energy so far. So you have a lot of flexibility for Pence, for Sea Rumbler, for a lot of really good Stochiea generics. Of course, Alvina as well, but I think Alvina doesn't necessarily have the best slot in this deck, especially when you look at the rears that are actually really, really good in this deck. Anyways, my voice was dying there. Auto Vanguard Circle. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked. You cost counterblast 1, retire 2 your rearguards. So a little bit of a hefty cost, but of course the order makes up for it. And again, you have a lot of easy rearguard retire fodder between Maple and Usurp, whatever else you're playing. You choose a grade 3 card with Reguregnus in its different card name within this unit from drop. So basically the other grade 3 we're going to look at in a sec. You ride it as stand and it gets drive -2 until end of turn. When you would ride by this effect, the riding unit is placed with all of the power increasing and critical increasing trigger effects this unit got this turn, which is pretty amazing. So you don't necessarily get the power from the order. The +5 is basically just to make a nice number. So your van is like 18. Maybe you have a booster behind that. That's 10k. You make 28, which is pretty annoying because, like, for example, if you look at Youthberg, even for rebuild, your numbers aren't the best. Turn 3, like, you really need a booster to kind of get more cards at your opponent's hand, or they just drop like a 15, and that's a 2 to pass if you're just swinging 13 with Twin. But anyways, the point here is if you flip OT or anything else, you are giving that power. Even for fronts, I do want to talk more about fronts because I think Solan fronts are a great option for this deck. But yeah, any crits, any power increase to the Vanguard, you're passing that onto the grade 3, which is really, really strong. I guess that's something Roroa wish they had, but they're passing like a bajillion power through, you know, Radalina and Momoke anyways. But yeah, really cool trigger effect. The -2 is basically, so it's very similar to REVOLDRESS. The grade 3 gains the drive back if your opponent's grade 3 or greater, but you're basically doing Twin into 0 drives going first, and going second, you'll have a pretty amazing power from the order, and you also get extra attacks when your Vanguard is placed for Usurp, because Usurp is just whenever your Vanguard is placed. So it's great for, you know, retire fodder when you place it during the ride phase. It's extra attacks during the battle phase, which happens basically in the manga if you've read the Sky Ride further into the chapters. But anyways, it's just a really great trigger fight. Very simple card. E2, get any card back from drop onto your rear circle is amazing. Of course, you can call PG, have that hostaged out. And then, of course, the auto Vanguard Circle skill is pretty much just there because, you know, you get that extra single drive off the grade 3 Reguregnus that you go into afterwards. And being able to pass trigger effects is pretty unique, I would say, in standard. Really, the only other thing I can think of off the top of my head that does this is Vanguard, only because of the new strategy set order they got, and I guess Overlord, because that restands and keeps its twin drive pretty easily with the support it's gotten over the years. But yeah, honestly, a really cool Vanguard. Very simple effects, but it has a lot of potential and a lot of really good flexibility for deck building if you want to kind of build it as a slower grind deck or something that's more aggressive. Next up, we have Deeplands, Reguregnus, Athanasios, and man, that name is just sick. Anyways, auto when placed on Vanguard Circle by the ability of your Deeplands Reguregnus that we just took a look at. You cost Soul Blast 1, choose a Deeplands Reguregnus from your drop, call to Vanguard Circle, and at end of turn, you put that on Vanguard Circle as rest. From this on-play skills, Soul Blast out your Vanguard, and then boom, you know, just call out your Vanguard that you just basically REVOLDRESSed on. I know I'm just calling it REVOLDRESS, even though I know it's not REVOLDRESS, because that's the easiest thing to compare of in terms of like just imagining the sequencing. But yeah, pretty much you get to just Soul Blast out your OG Van, call it back as well. It will take up a rearguard circle, but again, you're sacking off 2 of your rears for the cost anyways to do this. And then auto Vanguard Circle when it attacks, no cost at all. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater and this unit was placed from drop this turn, it gets drive +1 until end of turn. So easy drive +1, and of course it's going to be passing all that trigger and front effects. And then of course you also have Persona Ride and the plus power from the order, so easily going to be hitting very good numbers. Again, the trigger power that is passing is only from trigger effects, not from the order, but the order basically acts as extra power because, you know, it fulfills the condition. So you'll easily be hitting at least 33k, probably bigger on Persona turns, honestly. So pretty threatening, and that will likely have, you know, an extra crit or, you know, front. It's really easy with this deck probably to give like power to your Vanguard with your opponent 2 to passes, to be a little bit greedy because, you know, your trigger effects will pass, especially because you can like go all in on Vanguard, kind of like how you sometimes risk it with Overlord, and you know that your Vanguard is basically going to be passing those effects. A little bit different, especially because you only have 1 drive. But anyways, also as the continuous Guardian Circle skill, it gets +5 for each of your Vanguard with Deeplands in its card name, so it's not a 0 shield. And yeah, it's just nice to get a lot of additional shield for grade 3 because, yeah, not being a 0 shield in your deck, especially when you have to play multiple of it, because you always want to like go into this off the OG Reguregnus skill, is really helpful. So just a reminder again that Usurp basically raises the ceiling of this deck to do an extra attack. You're probably only doing that on Persona Ride turns because Usurp isn't gaining any additional power, you know, from the power of the set order. And as well, you know, your only things that are really getting buffed are if you call like Deeplands boosters from drop to get that additional power. But yeah, the ceiling of this deck is pretty much just 6 attacks. You know, you have Van, rear. Usually you'll do rear Van and then double Usurp if you're trying to high roll the 6 attacks. But that's pretty much the ceiling of this deck. There is a way, I guess, to do like some Cristiano's cheese. Someone was telling me to do 7 attacks, but you know, we'll leave Cristiano's cheese where Cristiano's cheese is if you want to like style with that. But Reguregnus for the most part is basically a 4 attack deck. If you are counting Usurp, you can do 5-6 attacks. But you obviously want to boost with those rears on side because they'll be pretty decently big with the buff from the set order. But yeah, honestly, very simple stuff. Really cool deck building. I really love the design that we're getting from DZ-Set12. It feels like they've just dropped bangers after bangers for support for like older decks and for new Radlines. So I'm really happy with what we've gotten from DZ-Set12 so far. The quality seems way better than all the previous sets, and I hope they keep this up going into DZ-Set13. Next up, we have Deeplands Jarnazak, which is the zombie shark. So act and drop once per turn. If your order zone has a call of Deeplands, costs Soul Blast 1, call this card to an open rearguard circle. Really nice that the condition isn't tied to when the set order is played like Combine Rusher. So he is kind of Combine Rusher, but he's not, and it's just really easy to get a free body on board, which is really nice. Then auto rearguard circle when it attacks a grade 3 or greater unit. If your unit was retired by a card ability this turn, easiest condition in the world because Vanguard circle is going to do this anyways to go into the second Reguregnus. It gets plus 5k until end of battle. So 15k attacker. Pretty easy to get done, and you know, it really easy to like play less than 4 copies because you can easily mill it out through selected mill effects, and then he'll just be there throughout the game unless he gets binded or, you know, any effect that basically would make it so he doesn't go back to drop when he dies. Next up, we have Deeplands Orgady, and this card also looks sick. When it's placed on rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Deeplands in its card name, cost either counterblast 1 or put a card from hand into soul, draw a card, and your Vanguard is grade 3 greater. This unit gets plus 5 until end of turn. Then continuous Guardian Circle, if you have Vanguard with Deeplands in its card name, this unit gets shield plus 5. Like, wow, this card is good. Not only is it optional soul if you really need the soul, because this deck will burn through soul really fast, I'm telling you. Also, why I'm considering soul in fronts for this deck, if you do want to try that out, especially because you can pass that power to the next Vanguard. But still, this card is just amazing early game. Sure, you don't get the power until you're on grade 3, but everything here is active early game because your Deeplands, like, the ride line is all named, so you get the 10k shield early, you get the easy early game to just burn CB, draw 1, or put a card from hand into soul if you want to cycle 0 shields, or anything like the set order, you can, you know, shove into soul, and then soul blast it out, and then play it from drop. So honestly, just a really good simple card. Like, this card's an amazing double rare, good for early game, good for late game, and because it's Deeplands' name, of course, it's going to be getting that power when you call it from drop. So just an amazing card all around. Like, there isn't really too much to talk about. 10k shield is obviously really good for guarding, so you don't have to commit 15 shields for really weird swings. And of course, this card is just amazing for the early game to burn off your CB and draw, or just shove 0 shields to get yourself more soul and cycle through your deck. So the last rare to talk about is Deeplands Gleane. It has a continuous, if you have Vanguard with Deeplands in its card name, it gets all the following, so this will be active immediately because your entire ride line is Deeplands named. Auto, when placed from hand, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card from among them, discard it, and shuffle your deck. So thankfully, you don't have to discard. You can choose up to 1 if you see 3 triggers. So it's basically like slightly less, you know, nerfed Philander, but it has a really good auto for the second ability. When it's retired from rearguard circle by either player's card ability, cost counterblast 1 and draw a card. So in case you burn a lot of your CB for the grade 2 we just looked at, or if you burned a lot of CB on this card, you can just, you know, shut the soul instead of paying the CB to draw 1. But this card also has interaction during opponent's turn, so, you know, if Bav or any really heavy retire matchup is in the meta, when it gets retired, you can CB draw 1, which is super cool. But obviously, your cost is, or your points is basically to retire 2 of these, so you can pay the cost twice for your Vanguard Circle skill to CB2, draw 2, and this also has really good synergy early game with Harvest Elf as well, which is why I think it's in the support slides that they're basically recommending that you play. But yeah, honestly, really solid card all around. Definitely going to be playing a few copies of these. This card is just really good for the deck. It's basically extra fodder you can call off the order to basically plus when you retire, or basically just to have a decent early game and slam down, and also, you know, plus as well when you do retire it, you know, by your Vanguard's ability or by Harvest Elf. Alright, so last but not least, we have a slideshow basically of recommended cards to play in this deck. So we're going to go through them, basically recap all the cards I talked about earlier. First off, we have Rotting Usurp Dragon, definitely going to be played in the deck, at least 2, probably way more. It's just good retire fodder for the order. It's just good, just good card all around. It's going to come out during grab phase. It's going to come out during battle phase. It's just really good in the deck. Was shown in the manga, and clearly after the card designs, they've made it really good for the deck. Philander, I'm not too sure about. It is obviously really great 18k booster if you do have 10 or more cards in drop and more selectively mill in the deck. It does have to be placed from hand, so it won't be like activated when you call it off Vanguard Circle or the order seal. But still, I'm not too sold honestly on Philander for now, but still pretty good card if you do want to try it out. Deeplands Mydeath is a little bit weird because you don't really play your order until turn 3 since it's a grade 3. You would have to play Habitat or something to have like the early game with Mydeath, but it is a Deeplands card, and I guess it can stun things in some matchup or do like some really weird stuff. So yeah, honestly, I'm not too sure why it is here, but I mean, I guess it exists. We have Harvest Elf, which I think is really good in this deck, but you kind of don't want to Soul Blast early for the effect to call a plant token, but you can if you really want to like try lane and aggro your opponents early. It's also really nice just to have a plant token behind your Vanguard forever. So like in a low commit turn, you could like call this Soul Blast 1, call a plant token like behind Vanguard, and then at the same time call like the Gleane in the same column and basically sack it off that same turn to essentially draw 2, which is really, really cool. I think Hakusei is a really cool card to talk about. Like you do have to CB1 to get the extra effect, but honestly you can just on place call a plant token and just stop right there. You don't have to pay the CB cost effect. But yeah, the red text of all your rears placed by card ability get +5 is really cool. You can snowball that with the order with Reguregnus and get a lot of power. Or you can choose your Vanguard and give it massive power as well, which I think is really cool because you have a lot of flexibility in terms of powering up your rears, which are already getting pretty big if you're calling them through card effects from your, order. Or, you can just kind of like, have this there and be like, oh, okay, well, everything's getting buffed bigger or I'm buffing my Vanguard. So you have to deal with one or the other. Again, I do just want to mention Hostage because it's really easy to get off. Bell is banned, so you don't really have a good way to empty bind anymore in Standard. But it's still a really easy way to reuse PG. You'll basically PG on a turn, then call it back out to Van. In fact, you could even have it be a booster behind Vanguard because you're giving it +5. So you'll be, 24 boosting Vanguard, which is pretty nice. And then, you can call out your, your Great Reguregnus. You're going to go back into like either bottom left or right circle instead. So I think Hostage is still easy to get off in this deck because it's so simple to just call it back from drop. And, once you do, it's like super, super easy to hostage it off because you'll PG on one turn, then call it back out to somewhere on your regard circle and then hostage it off. And unless I guess playing ladder is a bit awkward, so it's easy for them to snipe the PG. But if they don't have retire, it's pretty easy to just keep looping PGs until the point that they're all in bind. Again, Soul in fronts through Tier Knight is really nice because I do think this deck will burn through Soul really fast. There is Penthas and other cards in the deck, or in Stochiea, that you can be playing to get more Soul. So I think those will be decent options for the deck as well because calling from drop is super easy. So easy Soul for the deck if it really needs it. I think Grade 2 Maple is a decent option just because it's more fodder on your board if you don't play Usurp. Probably just as a 1-up because Usurp is more consistent. It is your 5th, 6th attack basically when you are on your kill turn with Persona Ride and you feel like you are in a good position where you want to get more cards out of your opponent's hand. But for the most part, Maple's kind of just like throwaway in this deck, especially because you probably don't have much deck space considering all the new cards that you do want to play, as well as maybe Harvest Elf and some other things to get some draw early game. But yes, Maple's still a pretty good option, just more, retire fodder for your set, or not your set order, your normal order, or whatever it is, basically just to, have more auto drop, on standby effects during your ride phase. You can get out Usurp and Maple during your ride phase just basically for free. I think Grade 1 Maple is also interesting as well, but likely not needed because your Deepland boosters are likely better. There isn't a 13k Deeplands booster, which is worthy to note, but, Maple's always just thrown in here. But the Grade 1 Maple probably isn't good in this deck. Shadow Cloak is also a great option. You just dump the Grade 3 normal order, the Deeplands order, and just play that. So honestly, just a very simple, good card you can throw into the deck. More stealing Zorga cards, crazy, and it's just generic Stochiea stuff. So, only placed on Regard Circle from hand, so when you call it from drop, it won't proc, but still easy way to get out your, order into drop in case you don't want to play or try out Philander. So the last thing I want to mention is the cards that Energy Blast in Stochiea. You have Sea Rumble Brave Shooter, the Ace Unit Pence, as well as Alvina. These are really easy cards to splash in because the only thing that uses energy is the Vanguard. And of course, you have a lot of really easy cycle with Brave Shooter, a lot of easy selectively mill and then calling units from drop, anything from drop with the Ace Unit with Pence. Alvina also has good synergy with Shadow Cloak. I don't think you have space for it, but it is a decent option. Or of course, you can grab, any other Blitz orders or whatever from drop with Alvina if you do decide to play that. And while most of your CB usage is going to Orgady or Gleane just to draw cards, of course, Orgady does have the option to shove a card from hand into soul if you need more soul. But yeah, you can always CB for Brave Shooter, and of course, all of your energy blasting will pretty much go to your one of use, like the Ace unit, or maybe any other cycler that you decide to play that does in fact use energy, or kind of do something early game. Because I think a lot of early game is super easy with Stochiea cyclers, especially with the cards we looked at earlier, such as Harvest Elf, and obviously the really good rears that are already printed as Deepland cards in this set. But yeah, I think overall Deeplands is looking pretty good. I don't have a deck list or anything built yet. I'm sure like other people will be cooking right now because I think this is one of the more exciting ride lines that we have gotten in recent years, or at least this year, especially because the year's about to end. We're gonna go into 2026. But Deeplands is honestly looking really good. Really impressed again with DZ set 12. I'm kind of like shilling on DZ set 12 right now, but honestly, just looking at the reviews from the past few weeks, it's been amazing. We do have a Bisu next week, so I might just combine them into one video. That might be easier, but there's probably a lot of cards to cover, but it is a collab, so it can't be too many cards, like as much as Token Rambu. But I'll decide on that and get that next week, and also be working on some buddy fight deck guides as well to come out either this week or next week, maybe both, but we'll see. So thank you guys so much for watching as usual. Do let me know what you think of the Deepland cards. I think they're all honestly pretty great. Great card design, a lot of really easy power through the normal order that becomes a set order. Well, technically it's not a set order again, it goes to continuous order zone. But yeah, really exciting stuff, and really do like the Fire Regalis reprint. Super happy to see that for people who were, really upset about that, especially because it was basically like really cheap on release, but then went up because like it is one of the best Regalis pieces out there. But yeah, I'm kind of just yapping on. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in another Vanguard video.